So imagine an artwork that is just so massive. It requires, like, the coordination of 35 distinct countries.
Yeah, that is a huge scale.
Right. And it operates with a budget in the tens of millions, uses military-grade broadcast logistics, explosive pyrotechnics, all of it.
Oh, absolutely.
But here is the crazy part. The entire artistic expression is strictly confined to a high-pressure, totally non-negotiable window of exactly 180 seconds.
Which is incredibly short.
Yeah, you probably aren't picturing, a masterpiece hanging in the Louvre. You're picturing the Eurovision Song Contest.
And for most people, that image immediately conjures up a sense of camp. Loud music, wind machines, something entirely detached from the serious world of fine art.
Definitely.
But the research we're unpacking today suggests that this reflex, to just write off massive pop spectacle as frivolous, is actually making us blind to one of the most sophisticated artistic frameworks operating in the world right now.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we are looking at a stack of really fascinating analytical documents from the Phygital Times and an independent research entity called SurR.Ai.
Right, and they're exploring concepts they call total popular art and total art plus tech.
Yeah, so our mission for you today is to take a magnifying glass to the 70th edition of Eurovision that's taking place in May 2026 in Vienna, specifically on May 12th, 14th, and 16th.
Exactly.
And we want to completely change how you view it. We aren't looking at it as a cheesy pop show. We're treating it as the ultimate modern evolution of an ancient artistic lineage.
Yeah, the Vienna broadcast, which is hosted at the Wiener Stadthalle with 35 public service broadcasters, is basically the perfect real-world laboratory to examine this. It is a massive convergence of media, technology, and culture.
Now, before we get into the mechanics of this, let's lay down a really clear boundary line. The sources we're working from emphasize this, and we want to pass that clarity straight to you.
Yes, very important context here.
This deep dive is an independent, journalistic, and educational analysis of a cultural framework. The European Broadcasting Union, the EBU, and their partners own all the copyrights, logos, and intellectual property for Eurovision.
Right, so we are not claiming any affiliation with them.
Exactly. And we aren't suggesting anyone should try to pirate their content. We are simply commentators taking apart this total popular art methodology to see how it ticks.
Yeah, we're really just interested in the engine underneath the hood. We want to know how the spectacle is engineered, the historical DNA behind it, and, well, what it ultimately reveals about how human beings gather to consume art on a massive scale.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I read the same sources, and I'm still struggling to buy the core premise.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, the analysis traces the DNA of a Eurovision pop broadcast all the way back to ancient Greek theater. Are we seriously putting a neon-clad pop singer belting out a dance track on the exact same functional level as an ancient Greek tragedy?
I know, it sounds a bit out there.
It's like comparing, I don't know, an Olympic ceremony for culture to a nightclub act. Because, honestly, one is a profound civic pillar of Western civilization, and the other is famously defined as kitsch.
What's fascinating here is that it sounds absurd on the surface, but the connection makes total sense when we redefine what kitsch actually does.
Okay, that one's
We usually toss that word around as an insult, right? Like we use it to mean cheap or lacking intellectual depth.
Yeah, exactly.
But the sources argue we need to view kitsch not as a failure to be serious, but as a deliberate technology. It's the intentional transformation of complex emotions into a shared mass ritual.
Wait, technology?
Yeah, by using bright visuals, exaggerated glamour, universally recognizable humor, it actively invites mass participation. It lowers the barrier to entry. And to understand why that mass participation is so crucial, you really do have to look at how the Greeks engineered their theater.
So you're saying the Greeks were engineering mass participation, not just putting on a play?
Precisely. Greek theater wasn't just a place you went to sit quietly in the dark and be entertained. It was the original model of total artistic integration.
Oh, so?
Well, the physical space was built around two specific technologies of meaning. First, the orchestra, which was the flat floor where the chorus danced and interacted, and second, the theatron, which was the actual structure designed for viewing. They fused architecture, mythology, live music, masks, and public debate into a single civic experience. The audience wasn't passive at all.
Right, they were part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their physical presence, their reactions were part of the artwork. The body, the voice, the space, and the audience were just one unified system.
All right, I can see how being physically present in a stone amphitheater makes you part of a civic ritual. But I'm having a hard time connecting a stone structure in Athens to a global television podcast.
That is a big jump.
Yeah. How do we leap from togas to
Well,
millions of people watching on screens?
so the lineage doesn't jump straight to television. It evolves by constantly absorbing whatever cutting-edge technology exists in a given era. The next massive leap in this lineage happens in the 1700s with the Baroque stage,
Okay.
specifically the work of the Vienna family.
Wait, the set designers.
Right, but they didn't just paint pretty backgrounds. The Vienna family essentially invented analog virtual reality.
Analog VR in the 1700s.
Yeah. Before them, a stage background was usually painted with a single vanishing point. That meant the illusion only really worked if you were sitting in the exact center seat, which was usually the king's seat.
Yeah.
Everyone else got a warped view.
Oh, that makes sense.
But the Bibbianas introduced angled perspective. They painted monumental architectural illusions that seemed to extend infinitely off the edges of the stage. They broke the frame.
Wow.
Space itself became part of the emotional artwork, pulling the entire audience into the illusion, regardless of where they sat.
Wait, so by breaking the visual boundary of the physical stage using forced perspective, they were doing exactly what modern stage designers do when they use massive LED screens to make an arena look like deep space or a cathedral.
Exactly. The technology changed from painted canvas to 4K pixels, but the artistic impulse to dissolve the boundary between the physical room and the imagined world is identical.
That is wild.
And then in the 19th century, Richard Wagner gave this impulse a formal name, the Gesamtkunstwerk, or the total work of art.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, Wagner believed that segregating the arts was a mistake. He argued that music, drama, and architecture had to be synthesized into one unified theatrical event.
But Wagner's vision was still incredibly heavy, right? I mean, it's intense, hours-long opera. It doesn't exactly scream 3-minute pop song with backup dancers.
No, it doesn't.
So how does this heavy philosophy operationalize into modern show business?
Well, it required a shift from pure theory into aggressive production management. As we hit the 20th century, you have artists like Mikhail Wrubel proving that an artist shouldn't just create standalone paintings. They should design entire emotional atmospheres.
Right.
But the real operational leap came from Sergei Diaghilev and his ballet Russes.
Why Diaghilev? What did he do differently?
Before Diaghilev, you might have a brilliant composer writing a score and a brilliant painter designing a backdrop, but they rarely spoke to each other. They worked in silos.
Just doing their own thing?
Exactly. But Diaghilev forced them into the same room. He brought together avant-garde painters like Leon Bakst, groundbreaking composers, and visionary choreographers, and he maintained absolute dictatorial control over how their work integrated.
Wow.
He didn't just put on a ballet, he proved that total art could function as a modern, repeatable production system.
He sounds like the prototype for a modern television showrunner.
He essentially was. And the final bridge to our modern era happened in 1966 at Bell Labs with a project called 9 Evenings, Theater and Engineering.
What happened there?
This is where the concept of the artist literally merged with the engineer. You had choreographers working with Doppler sonar, remote controls, and automated sound systems.
Oh, that's incredibly ahead of its time.
Very much so. The artwork was no longer just the human body or the paint. The artwork officially included the electronic signal, the documentation, and the technological infrastructure itself.
Okay, when you lay out the timeline like that, it completely reframes things. The desire to fuse voice, architecture, technology, and audience isn't some cheap gimmick invented to sell commercial breaks. It is a fundamental human drive.
Exactly.
We've been trying to build the perfect sensory machine for thousands of years, and a massive broadcast like Eurovision is just the latest, loudest iteration of that machine.
And that is why the sources call it the ultimate contemporary case study of total popular art. It compresses thousands of years of art theory into a live annual broadcast.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the compression itself is what fascinates me.
How do you mean?
Well, we just talked about this sweeping macro-historical timeline. But the modern broadcast relies on extreme micromanagement. It's like a cultural Formula One pit stop. The rules are brutal.
They really are.
You have a maximum of 6 performers on stage. You must perform an original track, and you have exactly 180 seconds to do it. 3 minutes.
It is a staggering constraint when you consider what they are trying to achieve.
Right. If you are a competing country, how do you mathematically solve that problem? You have to appeal to professional juries, who are grading you on vocal perfection and complex musical composition.
Very technical criteria.
But simultaneously, you have to appeal to the voting public at home who are reacting to pure emotional spectacle and instantly memorable visuals. How do you cram all of that into 3 minutes without it collapsing into chaos?
You do it by highly engineering what the framework calls the 17 ingredients of an entry. To survive that 3-minute pressure cooker, every single performance must operate as a flawless, total popular art machine.
Okay, what are these ingredients?
Well, it starts long before the singer opens their mouth. First, you have the composition and the lyrics. What language are you singing in? Are you using English to aim for emotional universality? Or are you using your native language to project authenticity?
And then you have the actual audio arrangement. Are we doing a high-energy dance drop, a heavy rock anthem, or, acoustic folk?
Exactly, and that's just the sonic foundation. Next, you layer on the visual ingredients, you have the choreography, you have the costume design, which is doing incredibly heavy lifting.
I'll bet.
In 3 seconds, a costume has to communicate the act's entire identity, whether they are leaning into futuristic avant-garde, traditional heritage, or deliberate irony. Then you introduce the stage architecture, the physical lifts, the stairs, the platforms.
But the architecture is useless without the lighting, right?
Yeah.
In the sources, they emphasize how lighting design doesn't just illuminate the singer, it physically dictates the emotional transitions of the song. A stark spotlight for the verse, an explosive color wash for the chorus.
Precisely. And integrated into that lighting is the LED video content, the physical props, and the pyrotechnics.
It's so much to manage.
It is. But what truly makes this an F1 pit stop is the broadcast discipline. You can have a brilliant singer and great fire effects, but if the camera direction isn't flawless, the television audience feels absolutely nothing.
That makes total sense.
The director is mapping out hundreds of individual camera cuts, close-ups for intimacy, sweeping crane shots for scale, rapid tracking shots to build tension.
What struck me in the analysis is that all of this camera work isn't just designed for the live broadcast anymore. There's a psychological ingredient they have to engineer now, which is meme potential.
Yes, the digital survival imperative.
Yes. The entry cannot just live on a television screen for 3 minutes. A specific high-angle shot or a particular choreographed hand gesture has to be engineered so that it looks incredible when it's clipped out and watched vertically on a smartphone.
Very true.
It has to work as a TikTok sound or a reaction image on X. If the performance doesn't have the legs to survive on social media, the massive broadcast machine failed.
And beyond the digital strategy, there's the core national strategy. The 17 ingredients force every country to choose a specific lane. Are they playing the traditional folklore card to stand out as unique?
Or are they utilizing a deliberate anti-national cosmopolitanism? Slick, generic pop to ensure they don't alienate anyone. It's a fine line to walk.
Yeah, it really is.
But wait, if an entry is a tightly controlled 3-minute diamond of 17 ingredients, what happens in minute 3.01?
Well,
The broadcast can't just pause for a commercial break while a crew of stagehands drags a giant flaming piano off the stage and wheels out a huge staircase for the next country.
this raises an important question about how broadcast mechanics actually dictate art. The logistics of live television require a massive setting to allow those diamonds to shine. The host city and the broadcast infrastructure have to completely swallow that chaos.
Let's look at how Vienna is doing that for 2026. The sources note that the city isn't just providing a building. The host broadcaster, ORF, is turning the stage design into a public-facing art system.
Yes, and it's a very specific aesthetic.
Right, they're explicitly drawing their visual identity from the Viennese secession movement. Now, I have to admit, when I first read Viennese secession movement, my eyes glazed over a bit. It sounds like a dusty chapter in an art history textbook.
I get that.
What does that actually mean for the stage?
It's actually a deeply rebellious choice. In the late 1800s, the secession movement, which was led by artists like Gustav Klimt, was literally a walkout.
A walkout?
Yeah, they seceded from the conservative, traditional art academies of Vienna because they felt art had become rigid and dead. They wanted to create something entirely new that merged fine art with daily life and architecture.
Oh, wow.
They used organic, flowing shapes. The sources note 3 specific motifs being utilized for the 2026 stage: the leaf, the curved line, and the construct.
So by using the secession movement as the basis for the stage, the broadcaster is visually communicating a break from the past. They're using this organic, rebellious design history as the literal floor that these pop stars are dancing on.
Precisely. The history of Vienna is woven directly into the broadcast infrastructure. The hundreds of microphones, the LED structures, the lighting rigs, the city's artistic DNA becomes the massive container for the entire event.
Which brings me to how they actually manage the chaos inside that container. I really want to highlight the one element of the broadcast that solves the problem of minute 3.001.
Go for it.
Most viewers probably use this specific moment as an excuse to go to the kitchen and grab a snack. But after reading these sources, I think it might be the most brilliant mechanical fix in modern television: the postcard.
Ah, the 40-second video clip that plays between each live performance.
Exactly. The rules dictate that the acts must appear one after another, separated only by these short videos. But these aren't just filler. The sources analyze these postcards as miniature, highly produced pieces of video art. They are the unsung heroes of the entire machine because they build a bridge over a brutal logistical nightmare.
The physical reset of the stage.
Right. Imagine the reality in the arena. The lights go down on Country A. The stage crew has under a minute to sprint out in the dark, sweep up pyrotechnic debris, detach heavy mechanical props, roll out an entirely new set for Country B, hook up the audio feeds, and get off the stage safely.
It is sheer localized panic.
It has to be. So how do you ensure the 150 million people watching at home don't get bored and change the channel while a roadie is sweeping the floor?
You deploy the postcard to hijack their attention.
You hijack it with beauty. The postcard combines high-end cinematic editing, national tourism imagery, and the personality of the upcoming artist. It acts as an emotional palate cleanser.
It really does.
It solves a gritty, technical problem with a seamless artistic solution, keeping the viewer entirely immersed in the Gesamtkunstwerk. You never see the sweat, you only see the art.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, when you step back and look at how effectively that system operates, the ancient civic ritual, the 17 ingredients, the secessionist state architecture, the postcards, you realize it is a constantly evolving organism. It absorbs whatever we throw at it, which means we have to look at the frontier. Where is this massive machine heading next? The analysis strongly points to the phygital landscape.
Phygital. I hear this buzzword thrown around a lot. It just means physical plus digital, right?
At its core, yes. And Eurovision is already deeply phygital. You have the physical arena in Vienna, but you simultaneously have the digital streaming ecosystem, the global social media conversation, and the massive data flow of online voting.
Right.
But the sources suggest the next true evolution of total art plus tech involves authorized Web3 collectibles.
Okay, I have to be honest, the moment I hear Web3 or collectibles, alarm bells go off. My brain immediately jumps to crypto speculation, like people trying to mint and flip digital pictures of monkeys for a quick profit.
And that skepticism is entirely justified, which is why the sources are incredibly deliberate in drawing a hard line against that speculative model.
Good.
They emphasize repeatedly that the European Broadcasting Union maintains an iron grip on their rights ownership. No independent tech company or fan can just rip broadcast footage, slap it on a blockchain, and sell it. That's piracy.
Of course.
But if the legitimate rights holders chose to develop authorized Web3 integrations, it wouldn't be about treating art like a volatile stock market. It would be about cultural memory and absolute provenance.
So what does this all mean? If it's not about flipping crypto, what does a Web3 collectible actually do for the person watching the show?
Well, think about the physical artifacts we used to keep. If you went to a legendary opera or an incredible rock concert 30 years ago, you kept the physical ticket stub. You kept the program.
Yeah, I have a shoebox full of those.
Right. It was tactile proof that you were part of the ritual. In a digital streaming world, that tactile proof evaporates. Web3 provides a way to restore it. An authorized collectible could be a secure blockchain certificate tied to a specific, iconic 3-minute performance.
Oh, I see.
Or it could be an official limited edition of one of those postcard video artworks.
So it's about permanence. It could be a verifiable badge proving you are physically standing in the Eurovision village in Vienna, or even just cryptographic proof that you participated in the live vote from your living room.
Exactly. In this specific framework of total art plus tech, artificial intelligence and blockchain are not the artists. The human remains the directing intelligence.
So the tech is just a tool.
AI is just a paintbrush, and Web3 is just the canvas for memory. It allows a fleeting, chaotic, massive spectacle to be permanently documented and securely owned in the digital realm.
But if the EBU has all the intellectual property locked down so tightly, where does that leave independent researchers or educational entities? The sources we are reading today come from SurR.Ai, who clearly don't own the broadcast rights. What is the value proposition for them?
The value isn't in trying to pirate the broadcast's IP. The actual sustainable opportunity lies in developing and licensing the analytical framework itself.
I see. It's not about selling the content, it's about selling the lens used to view the content.
Precisely. Entities like SurR.Ai can create original educational diagrams that map out the 17 ingredients. They can produce museum talks, podcast companion guides, or university modules that use this massive global event as a Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse for what?
To teach media literacy, the history of the Baroque stage, and digital technology. The long-term cultural value is in the methodology of total popular art. You don't need to own the copyright to the song to teach people how the song manipulates the lighting.
You're teaching people how to see the matrix, rather than trying to illegally sell them a piece of the code.
That's a great way to put it.
And honestly, that brings us right to the core of why this deep dive is so valuable to you, the listener. The next time you are watching a live stream, whether that is the Super Bowl halftime show, a massive stadium tour by a pop star, or the 70th edition of Eurovision, you aren't just going to see flashy lights and backup dancers anymore.
No, you'll see the whole structure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're going to see the machinery. You'll recognize the 17 ingredients working in real time to capture your attention. You'll understand that the stage architecture is physically manipulating your emotions. You will see an ancient civic ritual operating perfectly inside a digital broadcast.
And acknowledging that evolutionary timeline leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question about where the machinery goes tomorrow.
Oh,
We've seen how total art has progressed. It began with Greek audiences physically participating in the theatron. It evolved into modern viewers interacting with a Phygital pop broadcast through their smartphones. The technology constantly absorbs the audience deeper into the art.
it pulls us closer to the center of the illusion.
So, what happens to total popular art when the next ingredient added to the broadcast is us? What happens in the very near future when an audience's real-time biometric and emotional data, like their collective heart rates, their pupil dilation, their physical excitement measured through wearable technology, is fed directly back into the stadium?
Wow.
What happens to the concept of a live performance when the collective nervous system of 150 million viewers actively and autonomously alters the lighting design, the AI-generated LED environments, and the physical stage mechanics in real time?
The audience doesn't just watch the stage anymore. The audience's biology becomes the stage. Well, the next time you see a neon-clad pop singer preparing for a 3-minute performance, remember this. You aren't just looking at cheap entertainment. You are witnessing the bleeding edge of human artistic engineering.